If you've played Save the World for any amount of time, you've probably heard about the Nocturno, and if you've heard about me for any amount of time, you'd be wondering why I haven't covered this weapon yet. And frankly, it's because the Nocturno used to be a siege breaker with the same damage, but better perks. The Nocturno effectively had an extra crit damage perk, and it had damage to afflicted. You can go triple crit damage on this. It was way more flexible with the different perks that it could have, and that was it. It was most notably known for having affliction damage, which was brand new to the game and very peculiar, very specific to the Nocturno, but nowadays it has changed a ton. So they recently rebalanced a bunch of the Founder's weapons to have unique 6 perks to each of the individual weapons. I don't have them all, and I can't necessarily show them all, but I do have a drum roll where I can show you that every 10th round increases the weapon damage, and that's a nice bonus. I'll link my drum roll video in the description below if you guys want to hear all about that, but that's just one of the few weapons that did get changed in the recent updates, and the Nocturno was no exception. So now, instead of affliction damage, which was quite boring and rather limiting, hitting an enemy with this weapon marks them as a target, stacking with each hit. Upon reload, each marked target explodes in a half-tile radius, dealing 65% of the damage dealt per mark applied, and removes all marks from the target. So to basically explain that, whenever you hit a target and reload, it explodes. Whenever you kill an enemy, it explodes. You can stack those explosions, and those explosions, in my experience, maybe they patched this, maybe they'll patch it in the future, can also trigger another enemy to explode, and it is an awesome 6 perk. It doesn't inherently add any extra damage unless you stop firing and reload or something like that, but it adds incredibly powerful area of effect damage. So instead of just shooting one target in a crowd of zombies, it'll actually explode that target and hit all of the other targets and make it just absolutely sweep through. In fact, you can see in one of these clips, I'm pretty sure I actually turned around because I thought somebody was following me in the game. People do that when they come in from the streams, but no, they were leaving me alone playing the game just fine. But I was doing so much damage in an area here that I was actually shocked. I was just surprised that this was so effective, and it is, honestly, if I had a schematic for the Nocturno, it would be one of my favorite weapons in the game. And I'm going to shout out Skulls, link to his Twitch in the description, for showing me this footage. And I think he provided me 2 out of the 3 schematics here. He gave me a water one back when it was hitting for a few 100 million more damage than it was supposed to. And then he gave me a physical one, and somebody from the stream gave me a water one as well. So now I'm able to actually show you guys all of these different schematics and all of their glory, and talk about the best perks. So I had to mute Skulls' stream because he accepted my song request for Selena Gomez, and I do actually want to make a little bit of monetization off this video, so we're gonna have to have that muted. But you can see with the perks on this thing, you have some very serious potential. You have, like I mentioned earlier, 3 crit damage perks on this thing, which is actually huge, because if you want to run reload triple crit damage, or mag size triple crit damage, or damage triple crit damage, you could run this with totally rocking out and absolutely obliterate. I don't have a schematic for that, so I can't show it. Just trust me, that thing would be amazing. But I think the best all-around build for this would be crit rating double crit damage. I always recommend, you know, fire rate and damage and all that old stuff. You know, that is technically on par with a crit rating crit damage build, but when you add that second crit damage, it gets hugely better and far more consistent. And you can see in the gameplay that it doesn't matter. It does a lot of damage. It completely cleaves through enemies, and it's definitely the way to go for this. I used to recommend damage to afflicted in that bottom perk slot, but as I mentioned, seeing as you no longer have an affliction 6 perk, that won't actually net you any extra damage, so a crit damage perk is definitely better there. What I really want to talk about is that top perk. So yes, you can put an extra damage perk on there. That's not going to be incredibly significant. I've tested this on other weapons. I've done the math with the Silent Spectre, which actually has a much higher crit rating, so this would be more of a bonus maybe on this weapon, but ultimately that extra damage is usually like 15 to 20% real extra damage, because crits apply separately. It's kind of different. It might be a 30% of the base damage, but what I'm getting to here is it's not very significant. You will almost certainly not actually feel any difference to the actual performance of the weapon. What you're definitely going to notice, though, is a lack of bullets in the magazine or a slower reload, and I highly recommend going for one of those 2 routes. If you want more bullets right now, that's good. You can totally go magazine. I almost always recommend it on most of the weapons I cover, but I'm really thinking reload is the way to go here, especially because of that 6 perk. It activates the 6 perk whenever you reload, so the more you reload, the more effective you'll be able to be in activating that perk, and it'll be a lot quicker in getting you back into the action. So I think reload is perfectly fine here, but obviously mag size is another option for you you. If you absolutely want to go highest DPS possible, damage, triple crit damage, and a totally rockin' out build would be the way to go. But if you don't want to count any special hero lettuce, which I think is fair, crit rating, double crit damage, and damage would be the highest damage output in a single magazine. However, I think a reload perk on there would be higher damage over time, because when you factor in the reloads, that extra damage perk will lose out in the end. So as for the perks for this thing, I would have recommended water a few weeks ago when this thing was, as I mentioned, hitting for a few 100 million more than Epic probably intended, but nowadays it's the same recommendation as always. Physical if you're in the lower zones, energy is kind of better all around, and you can go for a specific element if you want to make this a part of a set, but the Nocturno really stands on its own. I think energy is probably the one true way to go here, which is kind of ironic because I have 3 schematics and none of them are energy. So if you have the Nocturno, definitely play around with it. I was going to hold this upload until, you know, the version of the game came out that allowed you to actually purchase this weapon. As of recording it, that is not available, but I'm hoping this will come out in the future where you'll be able to actually obtain this weapon again, and it will be a part of the ultimate version of the game. I don't know if that's specifically called the ultimate. It's the last upgrade you can get. They all have different names, and I'm not versed in what they're called. You can let me know in the comments below. And at least from my current upgrade, and I'm like 2 upgrades in, so there's a $40 save the world, and then there's like a $60 upgrade, so it's like 60 instead of 40, and then it confuses me every time. Then there's another $40 upgrade. This is like the $100 final step, so this is a very expensive weapon to get. Now, you do get all the other founders' weapons and a bunch of other little perks, but that bundle is quite outdated, and I don't want to rattle off what the rewards are right now because it's not even available, and it will most certainly change in the future. My point is, this weapon is locked behind a paid wall, as I'm sure all of you know, and I know that not everybody's going to be able to get it, but at least I was able to talk about it here for those of you who might have a schematic. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and have a nice day, you guys. And then